What is up, y'all? It is Deb, with author of Memoirs for Theater Kid. I am reporting live to you today in this beautiful afternoon in Jefferson City, Missouri. I'm at the Missouri State Penitentiary having a 1 o'clock tour. It is a little bit after 12 right now. Just got some time to kill, I'm going to tell you. Of course, that's Missouri. Beautiful Missouri River down there. They haven't opened up quite yet. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing here today. So this is part of my series of Becoming Blanche, my preparation to be playing Blanche Barrow, Blanche Caldwell Barrow, in Bonnie and Clyde at Capital City Productions. And she, after her arrest in Dexter, Iowa, what she did do 6 years here, right behind me, at the Missouri State Penitentiary. She was originally sentenced to 10 years, but was released after 6 on parole for being a model prisoner. So now, I'm going to go and be taking a lot of pictures, but there's no video allowed, so I won't be taking any video inside, but I will be taking a lot of pictures, and I'll record some voice narration to go with, that I'll be tacking on. So I'm very excited to be actually walking through the premises where Blanche actually walked, you know, just get a feel for what was really like for her, what she really went through. Now, obviously, the music, last you see of Blanche in the musical is her getting arrested and getting processed into prison and getting her mugshot and all that good stuff. So none of this is actually covered in the musical, but I wanted to, you know, go through her whole journey and see what it was like for her. And it's interesting. The first time you see Blanche in the show, her conversation she's having with her husband, Buck Marvin Barrow. It's interesting, you know. I was leading up to who just blocked this scene, the song where her song. It's "You're Going Back to Jail." She's talking to her husband and convincing him he's just escaped from prison, and she's convincing him to go back and finish out a sentence. And then later she tries to do the same thing with his brother Clyde. You know, it just, as I was leaving, earlier that day before rehearsal, I was, you know, on my lunch break at work, you know, we were going to be doing that scene, so I was going over my lines for that scene. I'm just thinking how ironic it was that, because Clyde and Buck kept, you know, because of their, you know, escapes from prison, you know, despite all their crimes, all things considered, they really didn't do that much prison time. And yet, you know, you got Blanche, who tried to do the right thing and it was so insistent to them, you gotta go back and finish your sentence. Yet I think of all of them, she's actually served the most time in prison because she got mixed up with their nonsense. But I give Blanche a lot of credit. She, after her time in prison, you know, she turned her life around. She turned her life around. Got out early on good behavior, remarried to a man named Eddie Frazier, although it's funny, a lot of people who knew her before prison said that Eddie was very similar to Buck, so take from that what you will. Unfortunately, he died before she did from cancer. You know, he married and stayed close with both the Barrow and Parker families. Eventually, until she died in her late 70s, also from cancer, lung cancer. Spoiler alert, smoking is very bad for you. Don't do it. But yes, we'll be touring the grounds today. It's actually interesting. There's a couple of photographs that I shared that I found of Blanche from her time here, overlooking that same Missouri River, and even of the Barrow families. Some of the members who are featured in Bonnie and Clyde, some of which who aren't. Them coming to visit her in prison, including some of the Barrow siblings and their spouses who aren't featured in Bonnie and Clyde for the sake of time. And it's a theater vlog, so of course I have to mention that this penitentiary is on Lafayette Street. Oui, mon ami, Lafayette. Lafayette, I'm taking this bus, but the rains make the red clothes redder with bloodstains. Lafayette. So we're here at the front entrance. I'm gonna go in a few seconds. So we're doing the history tour, not the ghost tour, but People do say this place is haunted. A few years ago, the show Ghost Adventures actually came here. I had some friends who were they hired some local actors to film the reenactments here. I know of people who supposedly haunted this place. I know my friends Ashley and Steve. Steve was actually my opposite of me in Little Shop of Horrors. We were Audrey and Seymour. He was in it. So was my friend Michael, who played a guy who got stabbed to death, and he showed me all the pictures of him covered in fake blood. Michael he lived in LA for a while, and he plays White House photographer in Scandal. Shout out to him. So they've also been in here for acting purposes. But yeah, we're getting ready to go in. Hey y'all, it's Deb. I just got back home. I just finished my tour of the Missouri State Penitentiary. I'm currently sitting in my Jeep, enjoying this with my window open, enjoying this lovely weather. Gonna kind of give you a recap of the tour. So unfortunately, I didn't get to learn a lot more about Blanche and her time there herself. The building that she would have spent her time in is no longer standing. Whenever the penitentiary was closed in 2004, I know a lot of buildings were torn down to make room for new government structures. Now, our guide, who took us through on the tour, his name was Larry. He worked in maintenance while the penitentiary was still in operation, and now works as a guide. He told me that after 1926, there was a new structure built for women. And so because Blanche was there between 33 and 39, she would have been in that new facility. There's a new government building where her prison housing would have been, and you can see it from the penitentiary grounds. I believe it's the Department of Natural Resources now. I drove by it on my way back. I thought about getting some footage or parking, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't a crime, but you can never be too careful when the government's involved. But it was way up on a hill, I know, Missouri, shocking, so would have given a nice view of the Missouri River, which is not surprising because from the pictures I've seen from Blanche's time there, a lot of them are pictures of her with the Missouri River in the background, of her leaning against the, barbed wire, chain link, the fence with the Missouri River in the background, including the aforementioned picture of the Barrow family coming to visit her. It was still a very enlightening experience getting to visit a place that was connected to Blanche. And we had a second person who was with us. Her name was Kathy. Kathy, you're my girl. If you're watching, you're awesome. Because I talked with her a little bit, and I told her that I chatted with her a little bit towards the end of the tour after we viewed the gas chambers. I told her oh, I'm playing Blanche Barrow, who was part of the Barrow gang, because I'm going to be in Bonnie and Clyde. And she said, oh, wait, at Capital City Productions? And I said, yes. And she says, oh, I see a couple shows there a year. I already have my tickets for that. I wanted to make sure I got a good seat. And so she talked about how she'd seen Cabaret, how she loved Cabaret. She saw Mamma Mia, and she's Addams Family. And I said, yes, I was in Addams Family. I played Grandma. And she said, okay, I can definitely see it now. And so she talked about how she was so excited that I had come, and I was so excited that she was coming. We were mutually standing each other, so that was very cool that was happening. So Kathy, I can't wait for you to see the show. I also learned that there's a whole separate Missouri State Penitentiary Museum. I don't know how I didn't know about that. So I'll try to visit there at some point. I asked her if she knew if there were any Blanche or just Barrow gang related artifacts at the museum. She said she didn't know of any, but maybe we'll see if there are some artifacts or any pictures from the structure that Blanche lived in while she was there. That would definitely be insightful. But I was still getting to walk the grounds of the cells that were up and running during the time that Clyde and Buck and the rest of the Barrow gang would have done time. Obviously not there, but Pretty Boy Floyd, who was one of Clyde and Barrow's contemporaries, did time there, and one of his accomplices was was executed there. One thing I definitely did not know is that Emma Goldman did some time there. Of course, the famous anarchist who is featured in Ragtime and my all-time favorite Stephen Sondheim show, Assassins. And James Earl Ray also did time there very early in his career. Of course, he was the man who assassinated Martin Luther King and is referenced in the big climax of Assassins. You know, there's that famous bit that John Wilkes Booth says. He says, "Why do all these rednecks have three names? James Earl Ray, John Wilkes Booth, Lee Harvey Oswald." I don't know why I find that part so funny, because, by all accounts, all three of those men were terrible and did terrible things. But just that line kills me. I don't know. I just really love Assassins, you guys. I love that show so much. Which probably tells me way more about me than you would ever need to know. So we'll see if we end up going to the Penitentiary Museum, but in the meantime, it was a very informative trip. But for now, without further ado, enjoy my photographs from the excursion with voiceover. Blanche and Buck Barrow were captured by law enforcement in Dexter, Iowa. Blanche was taken to a local doctor to treat her wounds, including glass shards in her eyes. From there, she was fingerprinted and had her mugshot taken in Des Moines before being transferred to Platte County Courthouse in Platte City, Missouri. It was there she got the news Buck had died, and she pled guilty to all charges against her, and on September 4th, 1933, was taken to Missouri State Penitentiary to serve her sentence. So as I said, the actual building where Blanche mainly occupied was no longer there, but let me back up a little bit to provide some overall context for female prisoners at Missouri State. Amelia Eddy, the first female convict to be sent to Missouri State Penitentiary, arrived in 1842, but staff was unsure how to handle a single female prisoner among all the men, so she was pardoned. Then a second woman, Martha Castro, was sentenced for killing her abusive husband with an axe in his sleep. Something tells me she'd get along well with the 6 Mary murderesses. He had it coming! He had it coming! Anyway, later, a separate women's dormitory was built, but then in 1926, the women in the residence at the time were moved to Prison Farm No. 1 a few blocks east. It was a 15-acre lot on a hill overlooking the Missouri River. It is there where Blanche stayed between 1933 and 1939 before she was released early on good behavior. Prison Farm No. 1 was torn down in 2003 to make room for a Department of Natural Resources Lewis and Clark Green building, which is still there. So I do have a frame of reference for where she would have been. The aforementioned Emma Goldman was in that same facility, and this anarchist didn't let prison stop her. During her time there, she and fellow incarcerated activist Katie Richards O'Hare were staunch advocates for better prison conditions. I applaud them for their efforts, though I will say from what I've read of the women's Prison Farm No. 1, it did sound like among the better setups as far as prison goes. The women worked largely outside, gardening to grow food to feed the massive population of inmates. While I did not see what would have been Blanche's prison quarters, I did walk among the cells of inmates who would have been used by contemporaries of the Barrow Gang, who were housed at Missouri State, such as Pretty Boy Floyd and his accomplice Adam Richetti. Richetti was one of 40 people killed at Missouri State Penitentiaries in the gas chambers while it was in operation. Walking through the cement and iron fixtures, you can't help but feel haunted by all that transpired there, even if you're not on the ghost tour. The pain, the suffering, the loneliness endured by the inmates, or even just thinking about the atrocities some of them had caused or would cause. And yes, that's me in James Earl Ray's cell. And okay, I admit, maybe I had a little too much fun having a mini photo shoot amidst it all. Even with the glimpse into life behind bars in a time gone by, I can see why Clyde and Buck Barrow would have been so desperate to escape and how over time the monotony and captivity could alter a person psychologically. I'm not at all saying anyone guilty of the crimes they're charged with aren't deserving of time behind bars or other just punishments. But as my guide Larry said to us, and something I think our audiences of Bonnie and Clyde will take away, is that good versus evil isn't always, and in fact, usually isn't black and white. To quote Wreck-It Ralph, just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy. People serving time could be your neighbors, family, or friends, who hit some hard times or made just a couple of bad decisions. Just look at Blanche Barrow.